Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder and team leader of Streamlined Properties. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Get ready for an empowering show with my guest, Ginger Faith. We're going to talk about how for the last 30 years, Ginger has been closing the real estate investment gap for women. She's a broker, a longtime investor, a real estate meetup, and Women's Wealth Network founder. You're really going to enjoy this show. Can't wait for you to hear it. So let's get to it. This is episode 184 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Ginger Faith. Ginger has been a successful real estate investor for 30 years. I love the old school. This is going to be great. She's a real estate broker, builder, CEO of Golden Canyon Properties, has flipped over 50 homes. She also is the founder of YourWealthNetwork meetup group and the Women's Wealth Network in the San Francisco Bay Area. Ginger, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, as I was saying, and we were talking in the pre-call, I love when I can talk to someone who knows about real estate before the internet. Going back on your journey, when was the first time that you remember being interested in real estate?
Reading books on real estate by Robert Allen kind of piqued my interest.
Yeah.
I had started off as an entrepreneur. I think I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid, just serial entrepreneur. I started off with a window cleaning business.
Oh, okay.
When I was like 15. On weekends and nights, and which was really cold. I was in New England at the time. It was cold during the wintertime. So I tried various businesses. And then once money started rolling in, I decided to figure out what to do with it. And so I started into learning about real estate. And then Robert Allen, back in the day, No Money Down, how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's how I get going.
It's interesting, though. I've talked to a few other people who had business starts like that were related to real estate, but didn't realize it at the time. Did you even realize that with the window business, like you were completely connected to houses or commercial businesses? Yeah,
I didn't think about it at the time. Just wanted to make a quick buck. That was it. So
yeah, and so back in the day, though, the funny thing about it is, I wonder if you can confirm this: the systems that were used by Robert Allen and that were proposed in the early days when we were getting started, they all still work now. It's just there's a lot of technology involved, but I think the old school way of doing real estate, is that still how you're doing business?
I've always been relationship business building all the time. I mean, that's the cornerstone. That feels right to me. And also, I respect people who have that personal touch. If somebody comes to me with an offer physically, if I have a listing, for example, because I'm a broker, if I have a listing, someone comes to me and introduces themselves, they just get ahead of the pack because just simply by that personal touch. So I'm a big believer in that. I don't think that we should get far away from that. So
yeah. I completely agree. And I'm sure that goes to your years of networking as well, because that's where people can really come together, start to build relationships, and without really an ask, the networking aspect. Has that been a huge thing for you and all the people that you bring into your networking groups?
Yes, it really absolutely has. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've found that people who are worried about where they're going to find partners, deals, learn things, if they just show up at meetups over and over, all of those things just show up.
Right. People tend to trust you. What do they say? After 7 times, people need 7 touches, right? And yeah. And, I think that connecting to higher quality groups are really important as well. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, Rotary clubs is an example, certain church groups, right? So you're going to find better people to joint venture with and to work with and makes life more enjoyable.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think, as real estate investors, everybody thinks of the major real estate investing conferences, networks, but a lot of times it's these ancillary groups that are maybe business owners or, like you said, other interests that bring you together, where you don't have a pitch, but of course, eventually you're going to all talk together and end up with great ideas from people outside the real estate business.
Right. And then, of course, people know you, like you, trust you, right? If you go on, like I've gone on wheelchair distributions with my Rotary Club, about 5 of them, I think now internationally, we give away wheelchairs to people.
Yeah.
And we work with the local wheelchair foundation here in Danville, California, and we bring them. But by doing that, you're on a rickety bus together over in Peru, chit-chatting, and then you're doing things. So you bond and you have a good time with people. And that, I think, really does help to solidify those relationships. And if they're a higher quality relationship, then who better to do business with than somebody that you know, like, and trust on both ends, right?
Yeah. So when you were getting started and you found real estate, started reading the books, how did you start making the connections? Because we didn't have meetup.com or Bigger Pockets to find a local thing. How did you get started that way?
You had these magazines that we had houses in the magazines, right? And so I'm looking at these little black and white houses, so that's how I got started. Robert Allen talks about looking in the newspaper and all that, but we don't do that anymore. It's so funny. I was reading these magazines, and I had houses for sale, and I called this guy who was a real estate agent at the time. And I said, I am looking to do make an investment. I like to, get some money and, put a down payment on a house, maybe a triplex. And the thing was, Robert Allen had this thing where if you buy one house per year for 10 years, start paying them down, that's your retirement plan, you're done. And so I thought, what if I buy a 6-family?
Hack this.
Yeah, exactly. That was my immediate thinking, like, that'd be better. So I started looking at all these houses, and this guy, Rico, he was so funny. He said, my friend just bought a triplex, and all he does is collect rents. He bought a Jaguar with the rents. And I'll never forget that. I was like, sold. I can do this.
Right. Here's my career.
Yeah. So oh man, I could do this. So little did I know that it wasn't like that, but it was really a funny way to get started. And then he brought me to these beautiful houses. And I remember him saying, you're a classy lady. You should go up in the Highlands where these nice houses are. And I looked at the price tag and I went, and I'm like doing the numbers. I'm like, it's going to work, right? I'm good, because my thing is I'm cheap and I didn't want to have to pay anything. Put the in, and after that, I wanted the tenants to do all the work.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting this crappy, fabulous Victorian. It was built in the 1800s. It had a widow's peak. It had mahogany.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And beautiful hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows. But the outside was a mess. It was like, I think every time paint went on sale at the hardware store, he would buy a gallon.
So you have 7 different shades of the same color.
So I looked at it and I lowballed and I got it. And I got a really cool 7,000 square foot Victorian house for $90,000.
Wow. Was it a single family or was it multiple units?
Multiple. It was a six family.
Oh, it was a 6-plex. Yeah. Wow.
Family, but it was chopped up in an interesting way. I think it was one of these old, it used to be a 1, and somebody somehow managed to slice and dice it, but it worked. Every unit was different and interesting, and it worked in it. And then as soon as I painted the outside, a painted lady, purple, and pink, I had people like lining up to move in. So that's
I think
okay.
Yeah, that first experience, though, and just what you're saying about the painting of the outside is a really good lesson for landlords, because I think that your newer landlord just kind of thinks, well, the inside's okay, so it's fine. But when the outside doesn't look good, those tenants don't enjoy coming in, so they don't treat the inside the same way. Have you seen that as experience, that the curb appeal, even in a rental property, is really important?
Yeah, at least have it neat and clean, and it doesn't have to be the Taj Mahal, but at least make it tight, right? So it looks like somebody cares.
Yeah, and one shade of current paint.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was your first experience like as a landlord? Because it was different back then. We all collected rent, usually hand to hand, no apps, no transfers. So your relationships were actually a little bit better with tenants. I collected rents for my dad. I knew all the tenants, and it was kind of a much, I think, a more seamless relationship process then.
Yeah. It depended on the location, the area. I ended up getting the tenant from hell eventually, rolling the dice. Like, after 5 a certain number is like, okay. But yeah, just, come by. They would come by, drop it off in the mailbox. That was usually, I was kind of lazy. I didn't want to go out and hunt them. I wanted them to come to me. So, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't have any mailbox money today. You guys got to come over and take care of business. So normally that would be it. They would put it in an envelope and make a check. And then, that's normally how it happened. Sometimes I would go out and collect the rents, but yeah, it was all checks,
that's the that's the tangibility though of it in the beginning. Like you get your first property, you kind of have like, what did I do moment? And then the checks come in and you're like, wait, this is starting to make sense, right? Is that what kind of was the proof of concept for you I'm going to keep going and keep doing this?
Yeah. Well, I was married to a guy who was freaked out. He was just freaked out about the idea of doing this. What? And he looked at the house and he said, this is like a haunted house. This looks like a haunted house. I'm not going to come for the signing because it's a haunted house. And we got into this big fight, of course, because I was fiery. And he, once the checks started rolling in and we were living for free in the main part of the house.
Yeah.
And then he's like, God, Jen, we're geniuses doing this, right?
What's this we now? So you guys house hacked that you lived in one unit and rented the other 5?
Yeah, I lived for free and made $500 a month.
Yeah, it's amazing for the old schoolers like us, of course, not old, but older than the new ones. A lot of people were doing house hack before that was a terminology, and we're doing these modified investments, like I always say, short-term rentals, those just used to be really timeshares. Like these things have all existed. And I don't think that people know that a lot of people were house hacking. You were way, way ahead of your time because I do think people were doing it. There was just no site or terminology around it.
Exactly. Now we have jargon.
Yeah, but it makes so much sense just from a one-to-one point for a new investor. Like, even if you just get a 2-family, you live in one side, you pay it down with the other side. I mean, it's just seems pretty easy. It's not as easy as we think. But what was your biggest landlord lesson though? Because you said you got one tenant from hell, which of course happens.
Oh, wow. Okay, so my blockbuster movie.
Yeah.
Blockbuster movie. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Pacific Heights.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I had one of those.
Yeah. Ooh. Oh, that's a scary one.
How do I talk about this? It was intense. She basically, I had deletted her apartment. I had deletted the building at considerable expense. And somehow her child ended up with high levels of lead paint, miraculously, after she got angry. Immediately after she got angry with me about something.
Yeah,
and I can't remember what it was. She was a better tenant than I was a landlord. She was a more professional. She really knew what she was doing. And being young and inexperienced, I just thought, I'll let her in because I've had good luck with everybody so far. I had actually been in her wedding. I was one of her.
Oh, wow.
I knew her from church. So I thought, what could go wrong?
Yeah. At the time, it does seem like this is the easiest one.
Yeah. 7 years later, I didn't check the fact that she was being evicted. And that's why she needed a place.
Yeah. I mean, technology does help us with that now.
Oh my God. Well, technology and awareness, it can still happen with people today.
Oh, yeah.
Not aware. And I was not aware. I just thought I was really naive. And I just said, oh, come on in. Come on in. And that was the kiss of death. I ended up ultimately selling the property. It ended up becoming such a fiasco. It was a nine units altogether. And she stopped paying rent, number one, but she did it by court forcing. I got a bad lawyer recommended by another real estate investor. Bad lawyer.
Yeah.
Basically, she said she's got you over the barrel. Her kid has high levels of lead paint. I gave her 6 months of free rent, $5,000, and she stayed in my house building for 6 months. Yeah. That's where the problem happened, because during the 6 months, she systematically started talking to all the other tenants.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If the tenants were good people, she would freak them out by basically saying, hey, I was a good tenant like you, and Ginger's evicting me.
Yeah, right. This can happen.
Move now.
Yeah.
And then if they were edgy, she was like, hey, do you want to know how to get free rent? I can show you.
Great. 6 to 8 against 1 now.
Yeah, exactly. So people started disappearing out of nowhere, or they started doing exactly what she was doing in the units. And so it was literally, I couldn't go on the property without a police escort. I was getting death threats on my phone from people, random people.
Yeah.
Baby killer. Like it was just like,
what a first investment. I mean, how did you stick with it?
It was my fourth.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I took a break and I became a mortgage broker. I moved I sold that property and I went to California, became a mortgage broker. And then when I got to California, being, of course, cheap like I was looking around and saying, these are not affordable. I'm not buying any of this crap, right?
Yeah.
So then I didn't start buying until 2009.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I've gone through some breaks in my career as well where, like, once 2008 happened, I took a long break and then I came back probably too late. I should have made a lot more purchases.
Yeah.
But I got a little bit freaked out. What made you come back, though, to investing in 2009?
Prices. So basically, I'm an opportunist, right? So when there were deals in the 90s, I was grabbing the deals, and then mortgage brokering made sense because there was a hungry crowd. People needed refinancing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my first investment was like 15.5% with 2 points, and I thought that was a fabulous deal. Yeah.
See, this is what the new people need to know who are complaining that rates are up from 3, which we're never going to see again. Like a lot of us were paying, 10, 15%, and it was pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, of course, 2007, 8, 9 happened, the crash happened, and now is the time again to pivot. And that's the way it is in capitalistic societies. We always need to pivot because things change. We go from boom to bust. We go from greed to fear. That's just part of the rhythm.
Yeah.
I think one of the secrets is to make yourself have a stable base. Don't go out on the edge. There are people who sailed right past 07, 08 because they had a stabilized bulletproof basis and they didn't go out on the edge, And so in that time, of course, the opportunity came with foreclosures and short sales. It came in spades, but nobody could see that in 06, 07 as it was happening. We only found that out by paying attention to what was going on. And so that's when I started back in investing. And that's where the 50 flips came in and that's during that time. It started in, my first flip was actually in 96, but then I took a cooling down to focus on mortgages and then went back in 09. So.
Yeah, the short sales REOs, that was the time, and those were good flips because the market was turning around pretty quickly in 2009, so that your out values were going to make sense too.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you like flipping? Because even when I like it, I still kind of hate it.
It's challenging always. Contractors, numbers, you got to make sure. I did it because there was an opportunity. Is it my passion? No. That's why I'm not doing it now. Otherwise, I still do it. The last one I did, I really loved. I did it with a great team. We bought a house for $2 million. It was like 1,700 square feet. We demoed it completely except for like 2 walls. And we built 3,500 square feet, 2-story house. And we put in like 1.25 million and we flipped it for 4.8.
Wow. Yeah. But that's understanding your market dynamics as both an investor and an agent. And I think that's why those of us like me and you who are licensed and have had, a history in both ends, you can really figure out what the values are. Whereas your regular investor is relying on somebody who maybe doesn't know or has, wants to get in there. But that's really important because if you take on a $2 million knockdown, you better know what the out value is to make sure that you're going to be good when you're putting in another $1 million too, right?
Right. And then, of course, you're always crossing your fingers.
Yeah. I always tell everybody, when I put out my ARV on a flip, it's like the absolute worst case scenario is what I look at as my number, because then I feel like I always get a windfall. I always do better, but it's like once in a while, things just go haywire. The town messes up or you get a drastic reduction in value. Mm-hmm. But if you have it, I think that new investors or any investor who's putting their best case scenario on a spreadsheet is in trouble, because then you start taking away from your profits to meet that profit. And then your product isn't good anymore.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one thing that going back to our history, I remember when spreadsheets came out and I figured out how to use them. I still didn't focus on them. Now it's very easy for people to use calculators, but I don't think they're helping the general investing public. I think in commercial real estate, it helps because obviously you're running numbers on large scale rents. It makes sense as a basis, but I mean, you can't just throw something on a spreadsheet and think it's going to work. You haven't seen the basement. You don't know what the structural components are in a large scale flip. So I think that newer investors are having problems with that. Have you seen that just around, especially as an agent, for people who come to you, they want to flip, but they don't really understand what the costs are?
Yeah, that's a big issue. Yeah.
Hey, it's Jonathan. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Ginger Faith. Of course, her and I were doing real estate before the internet, as I mentioned in the beginning. Can you believe that even existed? Before we get to the rest of the episode, I just want to remind you that whether you listen to podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or some other machine, the best thing that you can do for us is, one, share the podcast with friends who you know are interested in real estate investing and want to get a different take than the norm. They don't want to hear about doors. They want to hear about the journey. That's us. And if you have time while you're at it, make sure to leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's finish this off with Ginger Faith. Yeah, I mean, over your career in real estate investing, what do you think is the hardest part back then, and what do you think has changed for now that still makes it difficult? Because I think getting in as a new investor anytime, a lot of people are kind of waiting in the wings, looking for hope, but the old school techniques would still work. But there's just a lot of social media out there that tells them everything works.
And then you don't have to work.
Yeah, no, you just quit your 9 to 5 at 21 and just do wholesaling and then become a flipper, and it all works out great.
Yeah. The shows Flip This House in 30 minutes or less.
Yeah. Very, very easy. No problem. And those costs are all correct on TV too.
That's probably, I think, to your point, I think that's probably one of the hardest things is to really negotiate the indoctrination of social media and the highlight reels and the sitcoms and all of that. And then really what we're talking about is just work.
Yeah.
It's like plain old work. The people who are okay with working, I belong to a group of people. There's 40 of us, and this group takes down every quarter $1 billion worth of commercial real estate. You know how many people are immigrants?
I don't know. I want to know.
Quite a few. Quite a few. And I just, when I look at them and I marvel at their work ethic. And then I think that's the hardest part of real estate today is people think it's going to be easy. It's like me with thinking, I can collect rents and get a job. All right.
Yeah.
But it's really a matter of, getting up, suiting up, showing up, paying attention, getting good coaches, absolutely getting good coaches. Because if you're going to be an entrepreneur, it's can be lonely, and it's not like somebody's going to tell you what to do today.
Yeah.
You got to figure out what you're going to do. You got to be setting your goals, setting your whys. It's really deepened about personal development. Jim
I agree.
If you work on your job, you'll make a living. If you work on yourself, you'll make a fortune. Right. Yeah. So working on yourself in this business is paramount. And that means, everything from personality to diet to making sure, you're healthy and all of that. So there's so many dynamics, but the hardest thing is working on yourself.
I completely agree. I mean, I created this as the mindful approach to real estate investing to be a little different. And I think that what you're saying is so valid. I've always said that, one, if your partner or whoever you're with is not on board, you're not going to have successful investment history because you're always going to be fighting about it. If you yourself aren't in your best capacity, you're going to lose your money. Like, you're going to make bad decisions. If you get too emotionally attached to real estate, you're going to make bad decisions. I mean, you've seen these things over the years, and I think these are really good points because I think the more that you work on yourself, as you said, the more you're going to get better at all the other things, because you can't succeed if you're not doing well on your own, on the very basic necessities of your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. That's why I think, finances is really important. When you were getting started, you had the window washing business. How did you figure out how to just be financially savvy in the beginning? Because you said you're cheap like me, and I grew up with a cheap dad. He knew how to get everything for the right price. We made offers at yard sales. And he just taught me to be, I would say, I didn't become like, he was a little more cheap. He liked to get his clothes at Caldor, but he loved cars and houses. But he taught me to be very money smart and frugal without being cheap. And I think that that's important. What did you learn in the early days that you still carry with you now regarding money and investing it?
The bathtub theory of economics, which was so simple. It was Robert Allen. I did his master system, right? And I still to this day have over there Wealth Secrets. I've had that on my desk for 30 years from him, right? What are the wealth secrets? I'm a reader. So the bathtub theory of economics is real simple. You plug up the holes and you pour money in, or you pour water in, right?
Yeah.
That's it. It's so genius, right? So if you learn the bathtub theory of economics, like where are the holes, what's bleeding out, and how are you going to put more money in? To me, I think I've not liked the idea of budgeting. It doesn't, and I don't consider it a wealth building strategy.
I agree.
How do you think bigger rather than thinking smaller? If you're thinking smaller in budgeting, it's like, okay, I'm going to save a nickel here, but how much time did it take you to cut that coupon and to, organize them? And then I'd rather just spend my money thinking about a way to make, $1,000 instead of saving $2, whatever.
Yeah.
So just thinking bigger money, that's always served me better than penny pinching. But I do go over my statements. I make sure, okay, wait, this I don't know about this charge, and I don't know about this subscription. Am I using this subscription? I do that regularly. Cut the fat. That's important. But think bigger. And now I'm with people who think even bigger than me.
Yeah.
It's really challenging me. I love it so much because it's like, wow, these people think even bigger than me, and that's getting around the right crowd.
Yeah, I mean, two things in there. I think that philosophy is completely correct. I mean, for people who say, well, just don't buy the Starbucks every day, that's maybe the way to save up to get your first down payment. That's not going to make you rich. You reduce your own enjoyment unless you can make it as well. But sometimes it's kind of part of like, hey, I'm getting out more. If I'm out, then I'm going there, which goes back to our personal growth thing. You got to be out in the world a little. For those who are definitely extroverts, need to be out more than I do. But yeah, that's part of the journey as well. And I think that people getting into it now need to get their finances in order, understand where they're at, so they can make a savvy first investment instead of getting the pressure. Like social media is actually putting a lot of pressure on people to take action. They think that means buying. So they're going out, spending like their entire life savings on a very crappy duplex that they didn't realize was in a bad area and had low rents because they felt compelled to invest, like you're saying, too early. They want to get out of their 9 to 5. Are you seeing this as something that's happening, and how can we help them? I'm always trying on here to help them, like pump the brakes a little. I think people are rushing.
Well, Tony Robbins, who I love, but always talked about massive action, right? Take massive action. But if you're taking massive action in the wrong direction, it's going to ruin your life, right?
Yeah.
You need to take massive intelligent action. And you need to educate yourself, because nothing will burn you worse than bad real estate. Nothing will burn you worse. So I always encourage people, do not quit your job until you know what you're doing. Educate yourself and start small. And then talk to people who already are doing things, learn from them, grow and to continue learning. And now the benefit now is you don't have to wait for, you don't have to just read a book. You can listen to podcasts in your car. You can, there's learning everywhere. That's the amazing thing about where we're at right now is there's so much to learn taking massive action when you don't know what you're doing is more dangerous now than ever because the numbers are higher. Right.
Yeah, I think it's the way that people look at the word action, because I think action could be a lot of things. In real estate investing, people interpret action to be buying, but that's not. It's wait. If you go to 12 meetups in 12 months and you read 12 books in those 12 months and you listen to full episodes of a podcast every week, that's huge action, because then you're building, like you were saying before, you're building the foundation for success instead of trying to get the success before the foundation, which we know just from a building perspective, you knowing from building homes as well, if you have a bad foundation, the house is eventually going to be crap. And I think that's the same with your journey for finances and investment. And, social media just makes like, hey, it's gonna go a little bit quicker, but we know that it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So let me ask you a few questions, because I know this has been, you've been at this for a long time. Real estate investing as a whole was generally like a man's world for a long time. So coming up as a female investor and becoming big on the agent side as well, what was it that you learned by going through that? Hopefully things are better now, but it's still a very male-dominated industry, building real estate investing. How have you managed to get through that and succeed to your level, with that kind of as part of the industry?
I think it was, I don't know if it was because I was younger, more naive and cuter, that it was more of a problem. As I'm getting older, I'm more mature. I'm less attractive than I was when I was older. So I'm less like but it was harder than when I was younger, for sure.
Yeah.
It was hard. I don't know if it was the vibe, the energy, the era. When I went to my first meetup, it was actually not a meetup. It was a seminar on trust. On putting your properties into trusts.
Oh, yeah.
And that was in the 90s. So, but once I had assets, I wanted to protect them. So I decided I was going to do that. And one of the guys asked me there if I was looking for a husband, because I was the only woman in the room. I was the only woman in the room, and no, I have one. I'm good there, right? So it was a very different energy, and then working with contractors was different. It was a challenge. I'm not going to say it wasn't. It was a challenge, and so you have to learn. Again, it's all about personal development, right? So you have to learn boundaries and how not to piss somebody off, but still keep them moving in the right direction, what you want them to do without completely alienating people. So it's a challenge, but I think it's less of a challenge now. I would say to a young woman who wants to get involved with this is to just find people that you trust, mentors that you trust, other older females probably, and then have them help you navigate, But again, if you have really strong boundaries naturally, then you'll do better. And if you don't, it's a skill that can be developed.
Yeah. And I've also found so when I'm flipping, my project manager was a female and a good friend. And we occasionally would bump up against the city or the town or someone doing inspections who initially would come in chauvinistic. And then they would listen to her for 5 minutes, and then they would be like, okay, they would just forget. So really your knowledge of the area, I think maybe it shouldn't have to be like that, but I think anybody in a situation, the more knowledge that you have of the subject matter, the more people are going to be able to at least adjust even their old school opinions. And I've had so many young female investors on the show who are doing so well, and a lot of them succeeded by starting in groups that had more women so they could lift each other up together. And then, of course, it expanded because they were really doing much more than some of the men their age. And I was really impressed by that. My daughter's just 21 now and getting into it as well. And that's something that I look out for as well. So it's good to know that you powered through it as well, because it wasn't, I'm sure, always a comfortable environment back then.
Right. And there were no women's groups back then doing
right.
that. Yeah. That happened later. Right. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, what's your favorite asset now? I know you have a lot of different types of assets, but if you're going out looking for an asset to acquire for yourself, what type of asset class is like your favorite right now? Right
now, I'm looking for retail neighborhood shopping centers. And I've submitted an LOA on one, and the seller countered. So I'm kind of deciding. I've got to go deeper into due diligence. So that's like on the table right now.
Yeah.
I like the triple net and the professional tenants and all of that. So that's my favorite at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
triple net is sweet. And I found, though, as I get older, like I've been investing more in syndications and things that are actually really passive, because I know you agree with me that most things that are called passive investing and real estate investing are not at all passive.
Correct.
What do you think the difference is as we get a little bit older, how we look at our investments? Because the way that I look at it has changed. I don't want to be out flipping and dealing with contractors. I'd love to give money to people who know what they're doing and let them do it, or like you said, looking at larger scale assets that have very easy operational routines.
That's exactly it. Both what you said.
Yeah.
both things. Yeah. Yeah. At a certain point, okay, you've done the work, you've got the cash, you want to have a lifestyle. You start looking at everything and saying, have what's on my bucket list? What dreams haven't I fulfilled? Right. Yeah. And where do I want to visit? What do I want to do? So you start looking at things differently. And so once you have some cash reserves, you don't need to or want to at some point, right? So there's all sorts of other opportunities for real passive income. And usually that's becoming a private money lender. Now, the challenge with being a private money lender is that you have to actually know how to underwrite.
Yeah, big time. I mean, that's everything.
Mm-hmm. You have to know what you're doing, because REITs go broke with their model. And then you have to know that. But if you know the operators, if you know, okay, this is what they do. I like their system. They're honest. There's checks and balances. The investors are protected. Okay, I'll give you some to invest. I'll invest some with you. I'll invest some here. Maybe some notes. Yeah. So I think that does happen as you evolve naturally. You start becoming a little bit more selective with your time and investments. And then the other thing is you naturally know what you're better at.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of knowing what you're best at early, so you can save time, you can compress time.
Yeah.
By learning that. But once you know what you're best at, I enjoyed flipping. I wore the hiking boots and the tool belt, and it was cool when I was in my 20s. I was like, this is cool, this is fun. Got more paint on me than on the walls.
Yeah.
But that was cool. But then I'm like, all right, well, that's not really me. I'm more of a people, but it's good, right? You check it out. You're like, okay, do I like doing this? And the contractor, when you called I was getting a phone with my contractor. He loves that. That's his happy place,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think those are great points. And you made a point about the cash reserves, which I think is really relevant, because I think that a lot of people, I've said this a lot, that they're chasing financial freedom, but financial freedom is different for every person. If you live in the middle of America and your costs are low, what you need to be financially free might be a lot less than us in bigger markets. So I think we know that they're chasing time freedom. Everybody wants to have the time to do what they want when they want, and you need to have the resources to support that. But do you think that's a misnomer? It's why people are saying, like, well, if I get 10 properties now and they're calculating it on the spreadsheet, you were ahead of your time, because you said, I'll just get 6 at once and kind of hack this and make it go quicker. But I think there's this out there that if you have a ton of money, like, then you're fine. I mean, there's a reason why like 80 or 90% of lottery winners go broke within 5 years, because it's not money. It's how you handle the money, right?
Right. There's actually a great book called Sudden Wealth Syndrome, which is excellent. And the reason why people who get a lot of money end up blowing it, they literally don't know what to do with it. And when people know, they have money, like
a lot of hands in the jar.
Oh yeah, all of a sudden your long lost cousin shows up, and right. So there's legitimate reasons. I would say if anybody makes a lot of money in real estate quickly, they need to read that book. Yeah. And they need to slow down, and they need to tighten the belt, pretend the money's not there. Because that did happen to me once. I made a ton of money really, really fast, and then I blew it. I started day trading it, thinking I'm smart. I can do this. I can day trade. And that's what I did. So luckily I didn't blow all of it. I woke up from my stupor. I'm like, wait a minute. So I stopped. But that can happen. You can get so much that you get just disoriented. And so
I think you forget what the value is of it, and then it just keeps going and going. You see it a lot with sports stars that they hit huge contracts, and then 5 years later you hear they're bankrupt or selling their autographs on the side, and you kind of wonder, how could that happen? Bad foundation, bad planning, and bad colleagues. That's really important. I know that's been important for you because you run masterminds. How important has it been for you to keep the 5 people that you're closest with, all people who want to do similar things, as you're doing?
Well, I'm always with checks and balances because, like you said, I always evaluate who are the 5 people, right? So, because I also have very spiritual values, right? Money is not my only value by any means. So some of my close friends, their gifts are spiritual, but I do think about the net worth of some of my close friends because you think you talk differently, right? You have an understanding. And one of the cool things I appreciate is even my spiritual friends respect the value of money. And if I tell them about some of my big aspirations, they do not try to hold me back at all. They encourage it because their fullness of who they are. When I say they're spiritual, I don't mean that they're religious, whatever. They have a fullness of who they are, and they think expansion and growth, right? They want growth for themselves as well. So I'm always I like to say everybody I know is on the chopping block at all times, even though I love them.
That's me in a nutshell. Yeah, that is me.
I love them. Okay. But it is what it is, right? We're here growing ourselves, and we want to make sure that, and I can still love them. They might just be a little over here, and so that keeps me moving forward and moving up, and hopefully, they rise up as well. And that's because when I was younger, I grew up in a very toxic environment. And then I learned Tony Robbins earlier, but I didn't realize I was swimming in an ocean of toxicity.
Yeah.
So as I started getting out of it, I started making commitments to myself, and then you start breathing differently, and you start thinking differently, and I started retraining my mind. And so to me, there's nothing more precious than my own mind and heart and spirit and growth. Nothing is needs more protection than that. So most of the time now, I don't even know if a negative person exists. Our energies are so far apart. And if I happen to be in a group, which is rare, that where there's a negative person, my positive energy just makes them run away.
Yeah. Well, they can't handle it. But that goes to your very strong boundaries, which I think we've talked about and is very important for everybody, because the difference when you're around the 5 people who aren't in growth mode, whatever it is, not money mode, like you said, spirituality, all just focused on helping each other. Then when you get to the 5 people you are, like you said, you're like, wow, the air's really nice up here. Like nobody's dragging me down constantly, because if people are dragging you down constantly, you're not going to make good choices with your money. You're not going to make good real estate choices. You're going to sell too quick. You're going to buy terrible properties because you're trying to, do something too quick. I think it's a really good point, and people need to step back when they're feeling panicked about what they should do next. It's really time to go inward and figure out, well, what am I missing in myself that I don't have the confidence to make this decision?
Yeah. You buy a timeshare, you'll day trade.
Yeah. You think all the quick money things are going to work because they sound great. It's wholesaling in a nutshell. It doesn't work for 99% of the people, and it's also annoying.
Yeah. Those are good points. Good point.
So, for somebody who's, listening, they're pretty new to real estate investing. They have some money, but they don't know what to do with it. You, with all your experience and also as an agent, what direction would you point them to get started, in terms of an asset class? We know they should read books, podcasts, go to meetups, but what asset class right now do you think is really the most accessible and safe for a new investor?
That's a good question. I guess it depends on how much money they have. Actually, interestingly, I'm helping this couple, very successful couple, and they wanted to start an Airbnb. We just went live yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Because it was like, county license, this license, that license.
Yeah,
We've
of course.
been working with them for several months. And so we went live yesterday on their Airbnb, and they came to me yesterday with the same question.
Yeah.
They have some stash, and they're willing to take out X amount, blah, blah, blah. And as an agent, I say, you know what? In Silicon Valley, properties generally double in value every 10 years, generally speaking.
Yeah.
So what I did was, with you guys, what they want to do is Airbnb it. So number one, the answer to the question is in the question, okay? Because I couldn't give one person the same answer as another person.
Yeah.
With this particular couple, they like the Airbnb model. They feel like they can make more money to help pay down everything and then get cash flow, right?
Yeah.
Which Airbnb is a nice model if you can do it in your area, right? Yeah. Because you'll make more because you've got a business dovetailed with real estate.
Of course.
But you don't necessarily need school system unless you want resale value.
Right.
So with them, I'm like, okay, do you want the resale value? Because then you have to deal with the school system. Now the prices are going to be higher, but they're going to
higher buy-in.
Here, right? Or do you want like water views? Do you want views? Do you want easy access to the freeways? So because they wanted to invest locally, I found a pocket of areas around here in their buy box. And the intention is the Airbnb model and then equity down the road because they're young, right? Yeah. And they just wanted to continue this model. So I would say look around your area. Real estate is hyper local. What opportunities, right? There are some areas where, my God, you can still buy a house and have it cash flow as a rental.
Yeah.
You can still do that. There's some areas not here. What are you going to do? You buy a condo for $1 million. And
your rent's not matching up to that.
Work, right? But for something else, I'd say, like you said, pool your resources with another group that you trust and let them do the heavy lifting. I know several several great operators. I would have no hesitation investing with them. Obviously, I'd get my attorney involved and I'd read it. But they're doing some beautiful work, converting old, ugly high rises into modern apartments. Absolutely beautiful. And they're doing really strong work. They're like surgeons. What they did, and they've been doing it for over a decade. They know the markets and I would have no problem investing with certain people. So again, really figure out what you want. Figure out your target. What are your areas? And it's still about education. Because what I told these people was based on what their goals are and their location and where they're comfortable. But that's not going to be the same for somebody who lives out of state, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, those are great points. And I think I've always said real estate is decidedly local. Like I know that, of course, people in California are looking to invest other places or New York City just because the dynamics to invest are very hard. But I still find it hard to believe that anywhere you are in the country that you can't drive between an hour and a half max and still find an investable area. It may not be an area that you want to invest in, but I think there are investments closer than people think. And I think an hour is about as far as a new investor should go. It's close enough that you can get to if you need to. Not easy for emergencies, but you can still touch it because it's very hard, I think, as a first-time investor to say like, well, I'm going to invest 2,500 miles away. You can't learn anything like that. Yeah. Then you should just, buy into something else, like you said, where somebody else is operating the whole thing and it would be easier. But also a good point that everybody's real estate investing journey is different. And we need to take into account like what their goals are, help them flesh out what their why really is for the property. Because then, as you said, you're going to be able to give them much better advice that may apply to somebody else who has similar goals, but not to somebody next door who doesn't really want to do management at all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Ginger, it's been an absolute pleasure. Where is the best place for people to get in touch with you, find you, get more information about what you do?
My name is Ginger Crystal Faith. So you can find me online. You can find me. I have a YouTube channel and Facebook page, and I'm on all the social media platforms. So
you're quite easy to find if they take a look. Yeah.
The Ginger Crystal Faith real estate brokers on the planet. I think I'm the only one. So it's pretty easy to get in touch with me. Just message me on Facebook or YouTube, or look me up on the web.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for bringing your wealth of experience. I love hearing from us who've been at it for a while. I think that we can add that value for the younger people who, as we were saying, they see a lot on social media, but you don't know if it's real. Those of us who've been around for the time being have figured out, at least gone through the cycles of 2008, know that it's not always perfect. But as you said, when we were talking about 2008, the people who just stayed steady and had a good foundation, they made it right through. So hopefully these new people can use your advice, build a strong foundation to start and get their journey going.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks so much. That was Ginger Faith. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the episode so you can get a quick preview of who's coming up on the next episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And next episode, my guest is an attorney. like myself, we've only had maybe 5 or 6 total attorneys on the show, so I'm excited for this one. And this is a syndication-focused attorney. My guest is Tilden Muschetti. He works with real estate developers, real estate newbies, real estate funds, private equity funds, startups, established businesses, and he himself is an attorney, syndication coach, securities attorney, and an authority in the field with books to boot. You're going to get a lot out of this episode on syndication and real estate as a whole, so stick around and I'll see you next episode with Tilden Muschetti.